good. Look at that, I didn't even need the microphone. The City of Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals meets tonight in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, and other applicable laws. Tonight's hearing will be conducted in the following manner. The Secretary will read, the Secretary is absent tonight, so our illustrious clerk, and I hate to call you a clerk because you're so much more than that, Carla McGrath will read the legal notice or state that such a notice has been waived. All applications will be heard in the order they were received in the city clerk's office or as otherwise designated by the chair, and tonight we will hear everything in order. The petition or petitioner's representative will present the subject application to the board. Petitioner's representative means your attorney or your builder. The chair may limit the length of all remarks. If you go off topic and start telling me how long you lived in Peabody and what you do for work and how much money you have in the bank, that's what that means. I will limit those remarks. All parties in interest will be given an opportunity to speak either in favor or in opposition to a pending application, and the board may receive similar written communications to be placed on the public record. Okay, so what that means for those of you that are new, and we do have some new people here tonight, is when it's your turn to present, whether it's you or your builder or your attorney, you'll come up to the podium. Press the button till it's red so we can hear you. State your name and address for the record, and then tell us why you're here. You're here for dimensional relief. You want a deck, you want a garage, you want to raise your roof, whatever it is, and then you tell us the reasons why. Please stick to the subject matter. Remember, you are here for dimensional relief. You are not here to tell us your life story. At that point, the board will ask some questions if we have some, and then I will say, is there anyone in the audience to speak in favor? Is there anyone in the audience to speak in opposition? Usually there's a neighbor or two that will come up and say what wonderful neighbors you are, and they have no problem with your addition. We also have neighbors that will come up and speak in opposition. Once again, if you are here to speak in opposition for anything, you have to give clear and concise reasons for the dimensional relief, not because you don't like your neighbor. Let me say, I say this every month, the best petitions that get approved, the best petitions where you have gone to your neighbors ahead of tonight or whatever, and you just what you want. So they're not coming here because they got a notice in the mail and they have no idea what you're doing. So those of you that are listening, if you are here in the near future, please be your neighbor and get that all ironed out before you come to the meeting. After that's all done, you feel like to come back up to the podium and address any issues you may. At that point, the decision will be, then we vote. What I say, but everything approved. Obviously, if everything would be approved, you don't need a zoning board of appeals. It's a very fair board. If we deny something, we have very, very, very good reasons. And deny anything you should for the zoning rules obviously are meant to be abided by, but there's always room for a foot or a couple of feet, but sometimes we ask for the moon and the stars, and we're not going to give them. So, at that point, we vote, approved or not approved, and then the decision is typed and filed with the city clerk. Once that decision is filed with the city clerk, there is a 20-day appeal period to 20 days. In compliance, open meeting laws hearing is also being clerk. When you're at the microphone, please speak directly to the phone to your record. Once you speak and you go back to your seat, you hear if you want to the podium, just wait, we'll give you a chance. Please do not speak, yell, whatever from your seat. it's impolite, it's rude, and it doesn't accomplish anything. We'll give you another chance. So, with that being said, we are going to start with number 1, an application of Arlene Adams, 229 Lowell Street.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing March 20th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. 01960, on the application of Reimer and Arlene Adams for a variance from the provision of the zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, section 7.2, as it applies to the premise known as 229 Lowell Street. A variance to convert a single-family home to a two-family home requires relief from a minimum lot area where 7,500 square feet is required and 5822 is proposed. Left side yard where 10 feet is required and 4 feet is proposed. The property is located in an R2 zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at carla.mcgrath@peabody-ma.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Arlene and Reimer Adams. What else was I supposed to say? Oh, it's a change of use. We want to, we have an apartment. We want to make it a two-family house. Single family to two-family.
I know that the board, we've all been by this property. I have some questions. So the first questions and some comments. So if this is approved and it becomes a two-family, you have a FALA, right? A family living. That goes away, completely goes away. You cannot have that FALA if this gets approved for a two-family house. Do you want to just acknowledge, like, verbally?
I can't hear half of what
Yes.
you're saying. I'm hard of hearing.
Okay.
Yes.
So did you know that ahead of time?
Yes.
So-
No, I didn't know, but I know now.
So do you have somebody living in that FALA right now?
No.
Okay.
Outside.
I went by there today, and I have no words for the trailer and a car on the sidewalk. So parking in the front doesn't seem to work for me. You also have property that slopes a lot. Maybe a retaining wall is needed. We need DPW to look at that. I want to know if other members have looked at this parking area that wants to be done in the front of this house and what you think of it.
Through the chair, if I could, to the petitioners, I'm in the same quandary. How do you propose to, just in that top part is the only place you're going to have parking, which is really the sidewalk?
Parking.
Because it
Where
slopes
parking?
down into your house.
We sent in a proposed plan of what we were going to do with the front yard.
How are you going to make the parking, out front and out back?
We sent in a plot plan of what we plan to do out front to make parking. And that's been like that since we bought that house. We parked there. And it's not really on the sidewalk as much as everybody thinks it is. The shrubs are overgrown, which has kind of pushed everything out. When those row of shrubs are out of there, there's 9 feet from the shrub to my property line to park.
Well, I'll have Chris and Barry speak to this in a minute, but I'm saying right now that you have a trailer on the sidewalk and you have a car in front of that.
That car in front of that is my neighbor's car. That's on their property, not mine.
So you have a trailer in front of your house that basically is also on the sidewalk, and you can't tell me that it isn't because I parked right in front of your house today in traffic to take a good look at it.
Okay.
So what is that trailer doing there?
Pardon?
What is the trailer doing there? Is it for your work? Is it for storage?
It's basically, I have my motorcycle and some parts in it.
So it stays there?
It does stay there, but I mean, I can move it at any time. It's registered. I can do whatever we've taken it, you know, and gone on trips and stuff.
Well, the trailer has to be removed. That'll be one of the conditions. I notice on this plot plan, you have 3 parking spaces at Castle Circle. You have a vinyl shed that looks like it's going to be removed. It says it's going to be removed.
It is going to be removed.
So, in my estimation, I'm going to suggest you put a 4th parking space there because it works. And are you going to tell me it doesn't? No. Oh, yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, we're not going to allow cars being parked in front of your house. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Even if we do what I propose to do, if you have the plan there, I could,
Taking the shrubs out, taking the shrubs out.
taking the shrubs out and straightening out one corner of the driveway, and there's plenty of parking.
Through the chair. So folks are going to pull off of Lowell Street, pull into this parking spot facing your house, and how are they going to get out of that driveway? They're going to back out into Lowell Street?
No. There's enough room for us to pull in the driveway and back in that spot.
9 feet wide. You're talking from your property line, 9 feet is enough to pull a car in and back it out and turn out and pull onto Lowell Street?
Pull in the driveway in front of the house and back into the parking spot. Back to the front of the house. When you pull in the driveway, pull in parallel with the house and then back into the parking spot.
So if this becomes a 2-family house, then you're proposing 2 parking spaces for each family, is that correct?
Correct.
So
There's
then
actually going to be more than that. There's more parking than that.
But by right, you have 2 parking spaces for each family.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so that takes care of your 4 parking spaces in the back.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Before we go on to parking, you have a structure on the lower deck. You have here, it's marked lower level deck. And then, as I'm looking at it, it's to the left. So you have a brick walkway.
Yep.
You have a deck, and then you have a structure that is on somebody else's property.
It's on what?
Somebody else's property.
It is?
The netting, the screen,
The-
the gazebo.
Okay, there was a patio there when we bought the house. There was a just cinder block patio, and all I did was it kept getting undermined, so I put a deck over it. There's a screen house sitting there.
The $99 ones. The screen, he's got it as a structure.
Do you have a permit for that?
A permit?
Yeah, well, that is definitely going to have to be looked at and scrutinized a little bit more. I have also another question. In your front yard, you have, on the easement, a shed, a wood shed?
Pardon?
In your front yard, you have a wood shed?
Yeah.
Okay, so does that have a permit?
That's to be removed.
In the front yard, that's going to be removed? Or the front, whatever you call it? It's going to be removed?
Yes.
It doesn't say that here.
Well, it was supposed to, I don't know.
Okay. The decks that you have a lot of decks, you have a lot of stuff going on here. Was everything permitted? Was all your decks permitted? You have a lower deck? You know, you've got an upper level deck, you've got sheds.
What do you mean, were they permitted? Of course they were permitted.
Yes or no would suffice. Okay, so they were. Well, we have to look into that also. I need comments.
Through the chair, to the rear of the property, I saw the shed that's going to be removed. What's that big white object in front of the shed?
That's what's going to be removed. That shed's not being removed out back. That carport, is that
The white,
structure is going to be removed.
Because it was ripped, so it's the vinyl.
It's just a white vinyl, like a car tent, whatever you want to call it.
Woodshed.
Well, I have a conclusion, because this is, this whole thing is messy, and there are way too many questions, and you have structures upon structures upon structures, and parking that doesn't make sense. I would like to have a site visit with an inspector before we make any decision on this, and I'd like to know what the board thinks.
I think that, through the chair, I think that makes sense, just to clarify what's being removed, what's going where. You know, as proposed, I'm not going to support a parking lot in the front of the house where cars, whether the owner thinks that folks are going to pull in and back in and all that, that's not what's going to happen there. It's a dangerous place. It's a very busy intersection. You know, I think a site visit's appropriate.
But there is 4-car parking out back.
Even still, it's a three-bedroom house. We've grown there for 20-something years. I raised 2 kids there. They were in their 30s when they left. They had 2 cars. We had 2 cars. We're not changing anything. All we're doing is looking to change the use of that in-law apartment.
So we have 2 choices here tonight, sir. We can take a vote on whether we are going to approve or not approve what you're asking for, and you need 4 yes votes, or we can continue it until next month, when we all go with the building inspector to take a good hard look at every single thing that we have questions on. So you make your decision. Vote tonight or continue.
That's fine. I mean, if you guys want to come look at it, and we'll be there, we'll go over it, and
Just, if I could, through the chair. Those parking spaces in the back, are those existing now?
yes,
All right, so you have a curb cut, there's access off of Castle Circle, no
Yep.
problem.
yes. We have a driveway out back and a driveway out front.
Okay.
Curb cuts for, I don't think there's 4 curb cuts for 4 wide,
On where?
Castle Circle.
In the rear?
Yes.
It's 55 feet of frontage. You split it. What do you need, 9 feet for a car?
But how big's the curb cut, though? How big's the cut in the curb? Is it 2 cars wide, or is it 58 feet wide?
It's the entry wide.
Once again,
Take a look.
we need to take a look.
She got a bad back.
She could have brought a chair up. So would you like to continue, or would you like us to vote tonight?
Well, obviously you're not going to do you're not going to do it, so you want to do a meeting, right?
They want to come out and look at the property.
Right, so we'll come and look at it.
So could you request a,
Yeah, I guess.
well, you guess, no, you either yes, you get a continuance, or no, you don't.
Yeah.
So could you,
Yes.
you have to say you would like to continue this until the April 24th meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Say it again. We want to continue this till the April 24th meeting, please.
So I'll make a motion to accept the continuance to the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll get together and we'll see when we can either make 1 or 2 visits, and we'll get this straightened out for you.
Okay, and then you guys are going to meet with me as well, right? So we can go over it together. Okay.
Through the chair, one more comment. Sir, I don't know if you're aware, but your chimney's falling down.
The what?
Your chimney is falling down.
My chimney is falling down?
Yep, there's bricks on your roof. You might want to have that
It's
looked
from the
at.
tree when it fell.
We just had the neighbor's tree that was hanging over our property cut, 'cause that's
You got some bricks on your roof. You might want to have someone look at it.
Yep,
We
we
know
already know
that. We are addressing that.
Just know when we come and visit you, we're going to look at everything.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, number 2. Michael, I'm not going to try it. 26 Linden Road.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing March 20th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. 01960, on the application of Michael and Darnell DeBees for a variance from the provisions of the zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, Section 7.2, as it applies to the premise known as 26 Linden Road, Peabody, Mass., map 116, lot 061A. Petitioner seeks a variance to construct an enclosed front porch and requires relief from front yard setback where 20 feet is required and 12 is proposed. The property is located in an R1A zoning district. The application and plans are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath, carla.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov, or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Good evening. My name is Michael DeBiz. I am the owner of 26 Linden Road. I have with me my father, Frank DeBiz, and thank you for having us. What we are proposing to do is we would like to add a mudroom or a sunroom to the front of the property. It is a 9 by 12 foot enclosed structure.
Did you talk to your neighbors?
I did. I talked to a couple of my neighbors, not all of the neighbors on the street, but a couple.
Just through the chair, if I may. So where the proposed porch is going to be, it obviously shows stairs there existing now to go into the home.
Yes.
Are those stairs going to be completely removed and then rebuilt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they will be.
So as this plan is drawn, it appears to show 1, 2, 3, about 4 steps leading into this. Will those 4 steps still exist to go in to this sunroom or this mudroom?
Yes, it will. That'll be
Okay.
essentially the new front door of the home.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we had the correct distance there.
Through the chair, what was the comments from the neighbors?
All positive. Yeah, no issues with the construction of the work. I've been there for about 10 years, so we're friendly with them.
Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Any other questions by the board? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Roll call vote.
Chris.
Yes.
Barry. Stephen.
Yes?
Fran.
You have been approved.
Thank
39 lot.
Notice given the Board of the City held a public hearing March 20th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. 016. Variance from the provisions of the zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, Section 7.2, as it applies to the premise known as 9 Longwood Ave, Peabody, Mass., map 124, lot 184. Petitioner seeks a variance to build a deck and requires relief from rear yard setback where 35 feet is required and 1.6 is proposed. Lot coverage where 30% is allowed and 34% is proposed. The property is located in an R1A zoning district. The application and plan are available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at carla.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov, 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Before you begin, sir, we need a motion to accept the correspondence of enhanced safety assessment. May I have a motion for that?
So moved.
In favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Nathaniel Spencer, and I live in...
No, just press it once. Nope. Here you go.
Okay. My name is Nathaniel Spencer, and I live at 9 Longwood Ave. And we're proposing to build a deck in the rear of our house, approximately 20 feet by 7 feet with a little alcove that juts out from it. And we're seeking relief from the dimensional requirement that the setback be 35 feet from the property line, which is, and it's 1.5 feet back from the property line, and also relief from the requirement that the lot coverage be only 30%, whereas the proposed coverage is 34%.
Through the chair. And it looks like there's an existing deck off the back as it is right now, and that looks like that overhangs the property behind you?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the one that's being removed and then reconstructed entirely on yours?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right.
And then if it were to be approved, just a recommendation, obviously speak to the neighbor behind you before doing any kind of construction, so you don't avoid any issues with stuff falling onto that property or setup of ladders or equipment or anything like that.
Okay, yes, that makes sense.
Through the chair, prior to tonight, any conversations with neighbors?
Yes, we have spoken to a couple of our neighbors.
And
Yeah.
what was the reception to that?
They're enthusiastic about it.
Well, now there's a new word we haven't heard, enthusiastic. Any other questions here? Comments?
Just makes sense.
Just a comment, I noticed in your application, you folks do some work with DCF?
Yes, we are. We're adopting through DCF.
Well, God bless you, this world needs more folks like you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing? Motion to approve.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You are all set, sir. You'll hear from Carla tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Number 4, 3 Centennial Drive.
Notice is hereby given the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will hold a public hearing March 20th, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. 01960 on the application of Barlow Signs for a variance in the provisions of the zoning ordinance 2020 as amended section 11.5.4 as it applies to the premise known as 3 Centennial Drive, Peabody, Mass. map 090. Lot 027A. Petitioner seeks a variance to erect 2 freestanding signs and requires relief from number of signs when 1 freestanding sign is allowed and 2 are proposed. The property is located in an IP zoning district. The application and plan is available to the public and can be viewed by contacting Carla McGrath at carla.mcgrath@peabodymass.gov or 978-538-5792 in advance and prior to the public hearing. The agenda for this meeting is posted on the City of Peabody website.
Good evening, everybody. Bill McFadden, representing Barlow Signs. Our client is asking to put a lit directory sign in front of building number 3. What they're trying to do, they're replacing the front sign on the road that currently has a directory style sign. The new sign is just going to read 3 and 5. The traffic will flow into this building, so when people drive in, they will see number 3, the business listings on that building. At number 5, if you kind of veer to the left-hand side, there'll be a new directory at that facility too, listing their building tenants. So what they're trying to do is make this a one-way entry so the vehicles can come around and drive in the front of 5 and exit on that side. So it's really for people who are visiting this business center just to see where the listings are for the tenants.
Question through the chair. I noticed in the rendering, there's a tree that's being removed. What's the purpose of that removal?
Roots, so we can pour concrete in for the base for the sign.
Any other questions, comments?
I just have a comment. I think it's a great idea. Any directional sign are great. You know, my wife used to work at the Cummings Center, and as great as that is, it's hard to find your way around. So
Absolutely.
I think signs like this are necessary, so I'm going to support it.
Great. Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Hearing none, the matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You are all set, sir.
Thank you very much.
We are now ready for 128 Newbury Street. Before we begin, I need a motion to accept the following correspondence. March 7th, 2023, a memo on the follow-up items from February 23rd, 2023 ZBA meeting. 6617, Boston Environmental Memo from Ryan Cox. And 31523, a revised Building Commissioner's third-party review memo.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Here we go.
I can start right in, correct? Thank you. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I have offices at 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. I represent Maple Multifamily Land, SE LLC, which is a subsidiary and sort of the offspring of Trammell Crow. We have applied for a 40B application, and as recently as the last meeting, which was held on 2/27, we were able to update the materials that had been provided to you. We took questions from the board. We then responded to those questions and then created a memorandum that is part of your file now and is recited as one of the items that you've read into the record. Today you are accepting another report from Bob Langley, a report that we've actually seen in the past. It's a closeout memorandum trying to make sure that the board is aware that peer review has been completed, and there are 3 pages. It's a 4-page memorandum, and there's an analysis of stormwater, environmental, World Tech Engineering, having done our transportation and traffic, Ty and Bond having weighed in on wastewater, and then there are a series of recommended conditions, all of which we've seen and we're happy to accept. We are happy to answer further questions if the board has them this evening, and if there's any more. I've also seen a document that you did recite, which had come from Mr. Cox, and it's a item that pertains to the property in front of our particular property, but we're happy that the board has been able to see some of the progress with respect to remediation of that front piece of land. And we are happy to answer questions that you may have this evening, and otherwise we would ask that the public hearing be closed and we would move to a decision.
Decision tonight. Doesn't happen that way. But I have a couple of, I thought you said decision. Don't tangle with me tonight, Jack. Tonight, right now, so yes, we have the Boston Environmental Assessment and Remediation memo from Ryan. I just want Ryan to know that we do know about this, and before anything can get done with that property, it will have to be taken care of, that particular piece. However, that particular piece is not owned by Trammell Crow. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to say. The gentleman who spoke, I'm sorry, what was your name, sir? You can just yell it out. Mark? What was it? Andy. Okay. So I just want to tell you that the speech that you gave last month about the neighbors and cleaning up the area, It was a very poignant speech, and I greatly appreciate it. And it made a lot of sense, and it sort of tied everything together, and you know, made me, anyways, view this I have to say, in a lighter fashion. But I agree with everything you said, and I appreciate that you spoke. However, and this has nothing to do with you, that evening I asked specifically about the billiard hall. Now, I realize you don't own that property, but it has become much more colorful in graffiti since the very onset of this 40B before us. And I said last month, I was told at a meeting that it could be knocked down by you people if that's the way it was going to happen. I was told that. But last month, I was told that, no, we never said that. Well, in the minutes of the December 19th meeting, I say, what's been passed in, we haven't seen it yet. I know that we should probably wait for the plans, but did you say that there's gas on these plans will be removed? I also am concerned about the billiard building. You did say that it was going to be raised, knocked down. Is that still part of your plan, even though you don't own it? The response was, that's correct. The agreement between Tremmel Crowe, my clients, and Ralph Caruso's group are that the building will be removed. If it's not removed, then my clients have the right to do so. We show it on our plans because it's an existing condition. Now, I'm not going to, I don't know how you say that, split hairs over this, but for my own sanity, I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was talking about, and I knew that I was told that bill be knocked down. You don't know it. Sure, somebody down. I'm sure the toxic material, but you must have personally now. I let that go. It was, I know what it, and I know that, and here it is in the minutes. All these, the applicant stated at this time it does not expect the billiards hall to be demolished based on the property owner's rights. I know your hands are tied. And I know at some point somebody is going to tear that ridiculous-looking building down. Look, I have some concerns. You know, one of my major concerns was the landscaping. It's still a big concern of mine. I would like nothing more than, yes, to have this lush, quote-unquote, forest for these neighbors that have lived in this Dust Bowl for 15 years. The billiard hall is not only an eyesore, it's also toxic. There's nothing anybody can do about it. I'm not happy about it. What can I say? I do a lot of talking. Do you guys want to pitch in here?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Chair, obviously without getting into anything attorney-client related or anything that might otherwise be confidential, did something change during the course of it that altered the ability to touch that billiard hall?
Not necessarily. It's a matter of timing, as Andrew said last meeting. He said there are a set of circumstances that do exist in which we could tear that down, but it's not likely that we're triggering them at this time and with the circumstances and the way that this process has gone. anything reflecting on the process, but it's unlikely that we would trigger that right. Is that a fair statement? Andrew? That's a fair statement? Right, yeah. Well, if you want to come up, come up.
My name is Andy Huntoon, 2276 Washington Street in Newton. So as to the billiards hall, what Jack said is correct. It's a timing issue, so the property owner has certain rights where he can not have the building demolished, and it looks like that at this time that he's going to exercise those rights and not allow the building to be demolished. And so if we can come up with a way to get him to knock it down, we'd like to see it go as well. I don't love it there. It's not a great visual front door, but we're going to just do the best we can and see where we can get with him. Yes, sir.
Through the chair, I guess, it still seems a little vague to me. One, it seems like you don't want to do it, all right? I don't know if it's an expense, if it's what you don't want to open up the can of worms of what's underneath it. So that's one of the opinions I'm getting. And two, have you forced their hands? You want it down, and all you can tell me, well, it looks like they're going to exercise that right. Force their hand. Let's know. Are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? Have you tried forcing their hands to knock that building down? You know what we want. We want the building gone.
We have, and at this time, he's not going to let us do it, and I can't make him, and I would like to see it go, and frankly, it doesn't cost all that much to bulldoze a building, so it's not a cost issue, and we'd be way better off if it went away. I just can't make it go away.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I'd also like to address last month's meeting. We had a neighbor here that was, for lack of a better word, irate, pointing fingers, telling the board that, all we do is continue this, continue this, continue this, continue this. So I'm going to address that tonight. First of all, this city is going to have, at the end of this year, no less than 8 40Bs on the docket. Whether they have started to be built, whether they'll be built in 5 years, 2 years, I don't know. We know what we're doing. This isn't our first rodeo. There is no way that this board would ever let a 40B petition get passed or close a public hearing if everything wasn't buttoned up and looked at and scrutinized to the way correctly. We're not going to allow anybody else to come up to this podium and point fingers and start telling us that, well, all we do is continue it. It was continued because, A, it has to be done right, B, the plans took months to reflect 180 units. We kept getting plans that said 220 units. You had gas lines. There were mistakes. There were promises made. They weren't kept. On and on and on. At this point in time, it looks like, from what I can see, from what the board members can see, from what Mr. Langley, Carla McGrath, it looks like everything is finally where it's supposed to be. However, the reason that this was continued and continued is because there were mistakes and legalities that had to be addressed and deadlines that had to be met that weren't met. And I just want everybody to know that if you think that we like to continue things, we don't. We like things nice, neat, buttoned up, let's get it done. That wasn't the case with this project. That's why it took so long. It looks like it's finally ready. I also am going to say that, and I'm sure that everybody, look, I really don't know how to hide my emotions. It's just who I am. This has been a little thorn in my side from the beginning. However, your comments last month really hit me to make me look at this a different way. Do these neighbors deserve something more than a dust bowl? Yes. Is a 180-unit building too large? It is. There's nothing I can do about this now. I think it's too large. I don't even know how you're going to get 180 people to live there, in addition to everything else that's being built. It's just my own personal feelings. It has nothing to do with what's legal and this is allowed. The state approved it. The state loves 40Bs. We have the room. I am going on and on talking, but I'm trying to educate people to know that if you think for 1 minute that we're like, and I've said it before, yay, another 40B in Peabody, that's great. No, that's not the way it is. But if the state gives you your approval and you come before us and we have the land, then all of this has to be done correctly. So that's why it took so long, and it looks like we're ready to close the public hearing unless something else comes up in the next 10 minutes. And with that, I think I'm done. Damn, you want to smile, Jack? In the audience to speak on anything else tonight. Ryan, come on up.
Ryan Cox, 11 Hammock Road, Peabody. So I wrote it down today, so I get everything. Good evening. Since I believe this is the final meeting to discuss this project because the developers did not submit a written request for an extension of the public hearing, I would like to review my concerns I have continued this project. I have followed this project and these developers. I plan to review the areas that are still under concern to this point and would appreciate the opportunity to get all of my concerns and comments out before rebuttal from the developers occur. I appreciate your time and listening ears. Some of the concerns are school. As someone who is going to be sending my child through the Peabody school system, there continues to be a concern of overcrowded in our elementary and middle school. This building will feed into that. Has there been any conversation or plan with the Peabody Board of Education on how they will handle the increase of students? Will they be hiring more teachers, increasing classroom sizes? Parking. Per the City of Peabody, each unit is required 2 parking spots, which is not provided with the 310 spots submitted by the developer. If the developer is using their previous builds, for example, Bill Ricker, as a guide for parking, they need to take into consideration that there is no public transportation available within walking distance of the Peabody build. Therefore, the number of spots needed, I believe, would be higher at this location. If there is not enough parking provided, where will the overflow be? Would it be on the surrounding streets, or would it be Ultimate and Honeydew offering their parking spots? How is the city going to prevent overflow parking on the neighborhoods? The landscape plan. The planting schedule that they submitted is for the entirety of the property. Does not clearly identify what the actual buffer zone is. The plans state that all planting will be done upon completion of construction. Nowhere is it noted what the buffer zone will be and when it will be planted. Gates. The gates should be moved to the end of the fence, not in the middle. Gates in the middle would allow for easy access for residents to enter and walk their pets within that buffer zone. This buffer zone was created to give the easement on Corral Road. Corral. Easement. Do the developers plan on using the easement which is drawn on the plans on Corral Street? Or do they plan to use the opening on Winona Street for water, electric? This is important because the plan states that final location connections will be decided by Peabody Water and Electric. Have the developers reached out to see where those final connections would be? Right now, the drawing says that they are on Winona Street, but is not finalized. If the plan is to use Corral Street, it would be nice for the neighbors to know that they will be impacted. Environmental. The letter that was provided that states that 2 truckloads of loom were stored on Circle LLC is not the question I have been asking since the original site visit. The material that I continue to question was trucked in for roughly 2 weeks in the beginning of October 21 onto the site. The owner and the developer have not provided an adequate answer for the material. I believe that this is a change of site conditions and testing has to be redone. Part of Mass Housing's application is to provide soil samples of the site, and due to the change in material, testing and soil samples need to be provided. I question why the owners and the developers refused to answer the provided explanation for the material that was trucked in and are diverting it to 2 truckloads of loom. For the billiards hall, when the developers first, you touched on this, but I'm going to read it anyways. When the developers first met with the residents at the hotel, they insisted that they were going to knock down the billiards hall and remove the detention pond, which was a large selling point for many residents and the community because of it being an eyesore. Following that meeting, the developers stated that they had the right to knock it down if the owner does not. And now we are being told that the hall is going to stay because of the owner's rights. For months, the developers have been asked to provide their legal written rights of those 2 parcels of land and have not done so. The reason why it is a concern and why all community members should be concerned is that because of the contamination at 128 Newberry Street will not be addressed. There is currently a filtration system in the billiards hall that is pumping groundwater and is filtering a temporary solution for contamination. This is a concern with the plan to take groundwater runoff from Route 1 and their entry and place it in front of the billiards hall, which is adding more water to a contaminated site. If the pumping system becomes overwhelmed or fails, who is responsible for the contaminated water flowing into the Anderson wells since they do not own that land? In the past year, I have attended most every ZB to consult concerns about the project. I'm very knowledgeable about the project and voiced my concern openly once has reached out to have a private discussion with and continue to back statement and argue not provide this. As a law developer, I would have expected them to be more prepared with it. This is not a good fit for people.
Well, that has some very valid point.
We have sensor concerns. Several other discussion on unfortunate address. March 7th. Memo, but I suppose Attorney Kelty could address appeals to the meeting.
Purely if you want to highlight, and we could address them if you feel they need to.
Ryan, to give we just read to color, then up. Okay, so so thank you for telling me. So we do front of us the summary of all this information: gas surveys, et cetera, et cetera. It goes through and John Street. I believe this evening be my route, but the best route to take is to close the hearing. When we have this thing drafted, We're going to take a very good look, Ron, at what you read tonight. And then in April, when we read the decision, we also can call that a working evening, a working decision. And if there's something that we don't like in that decision, or we need to add, or we need to tweak, or we, God forbid, overlooked, I think we can address that evening. What do you think?
I agree, because I believe there are some issues that can't be addressed by memo, like overcrowding of the schools. Unfortunately, that's a reality we're going to have to live with for quite some time after all these 40Bs. But other issues either are addressed within this memo or addressed at other areas of the plans. And again, they may need some tweaking, because obviously not both sides aren't going to agree to it. But I think we're at a good point now to close the public hearing and let it run with the conditions within the decision.
Right. So, once again, may not seem fair right now, but when we meet in April and we go over the decision and the conditions, if something has to be changed or added or deleted or whatever, we can do it then. And if something drastic happens, we don't really have to approve that decision that evening. It's never happened that way, but we just really hope that the conditions that are going to be written up reflect everything that has to be done correctly.
Some comments to the chair, and to Stephen's point. You know, these 40Bs get copied to the school committee, to the school department. They're well aware of the potential of these projects. Absolutely, that's a concern in other 40Bs that are on our docket. I appreciate Ryan's comments, and I go back to the neighbors that I met in person that were all in support of this, the direct abutters to this project. The dust, the dirt, the riffraff that goes in and out of there, absolutely, as a citizen of this community, I would love that billiards hall to go away and that land to be cleaned up. I believe the attorney for the applicant and the applicant that they tried to get that accomplished. That would have been great to ice this cake, but I'm going to be in support of closing this today.
Not to beat a dead horse, but to Chris's point, this has been an ongoing topic of conversation for all these 40Bs, where these are submitted by Carla to every department and every section of Peabody. And we rely upon their comments and their memos and their opinions. So when they're left out, we're left in a position like this one here, where we have concerns about a school system becoming overcrowded with all these 40Bs versus, you know, what the other documentation says without necessarily specific commentary from certain parts of the city. And it can make it seem like it's not transparent, but it's just sometimes it's just not there. We just might not have that memo.
You know, I just thought of something. Remind me when we're going through the decision, because there's no way that the bus is going to stop on Route 1. Whenever this gets built, I mean, look, I don't know, between interest rates and building costs, this couldn't get built for, I don't know when. 5 years, 6 years, 3 years, I don't know. But the buses are not going to stop on Route 1. We already discussed for them to go in, and I forgot about that. I don't think that I've read that lately, but that has to be a condition. And if it's not in the conditions next month, that's going to be a problem.
Also, if I could, through the chair. Yeah, I mean, like we've always said, I mean, we sort of get bogged down on third-party review, but things like public safety, school department, it's not that we don't consider them, but it's that we consider them, but the experts who have to handle them, need to consider them also. You know, it affects the residents. Well, we expect to hear from city councilors. You know, we don't always hear from city councilors, but you would think that we do. We would, you know. And so if we don't hear from them, then I guess they would have no concerns about what's going on. And that might not be a fair statement, but it's just what we can assume. You know, it's like these 40Bs are, yeah, we have the final decision, but it's everybody's responsibility. Matter of fact, we're given instructions by the state. We need to seek out that. And one thing that we always make sure we do, and Carla does a great job. Carla, you make sure that every department's got this. Yes, they all have it. So once they get it, they know we're waiting comments. And if comments don't come, then I guess, you know, everything's fine, you know, and maybe we get bogged down in third-party review, but I think, you know, the developers have now started to realize that it's not just going to be, you know, stormwater, you know, everybody think that that's the do-all, say-all, but it's not, and everything is considered, and you mentioned the speech that you made last week, and it made a lot of sense to me, you know. I was adamant about this site. You know, in a previous life, I made a vote that destroyed that land up there, you know, and that's something you live with for a long time, and until it's righted, you always think about that. And I think the gentleman said, like he said, he goes, it's not going to get righted unless we do something up there, unless we make that place more vibrant, you know, bring in the development, bring action up there. You know, so I think it's important that we do something. I mean, I look at buildings that say that nothing's worse than watching a building just sit there and deteriorate. You know, you look at this, every ward in the city has a building that just sits there and deteriorates and it proves nothing. And I think of the Alpine building off of Linfield Street. It just sits there. It's as good as it's ever going to get unless something happens there. So maybe it's not as bad to think that it's not the worst thing in the world that we're going to do something. And that's why we work hard to make it reasonable. You know, I can't blame a developer to go in and try to maximize his money. That's our job to try to cut it back. To say, no, all right, yeah, I know you want to make money here, but, you know, we've got a neighborhood to protect also. So I think you know, we're probably starting to get it a lot better now. I think we got it pretty well down. That, you know, we do have leeway. We know what our leeway is. We know what we can do and what we can't do. So, you know, I think we've done a lot of work here. I know Mr. Cox has done a lot of work. You know, I mean, if everybody would get involved as he has, it makes it a lot easier. You know, you sit there with 440Bs going on, and that's what your living room table looks like sometimes at home when you're trying to go through the paperwork, you know. And is it easy to lose something? Yeah, absolutely it's easy to lose something. And that's why we need people like Mr. Cox to say, hey, wait a minute, did you catch this? Well, no, I didn't, to be honest with you. So thank you very much. So I think it's a group effort. I think a lot of work has been going on, and I think we're finally getting to a point where we could probably do something up there. So thank you.
Can I just confirm that there was an August 2nd memo in regards to the Transportation Department through Attorney Kilty, and that they were amenable to the bus going onto the Alexian property to pick up the kids, and there would be no pickup or drop-off on Winona, and that they would enter the property.
Right, and that, was that given to, okay. Mr. Attorney Sigelsson has that, do you think?
Attorney Sigelsson has everything.
That memo. Anything else? Motion is, matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve at this point here, pending the, I don't think we do. I think we just wait for the decision to be drafted.
So we've closed the public hearing. We can hear, excuse me? We can hear not from anybody else now. No more public. Next month, we will, on the 24th, we will have another attorney that we usually have for our decisions. Attorney Damon Settleson. He will, at that point, read the decision. We will already have had it. We will go over it ourselves. And at that point in time, we will either approve the decision or deny the decision. We have 40 days from today to render a decision. And April 24th is within that timeline. So we'll see that happening next month. Thank you. One-minute reset. Well, we're going to now continue to the next one, which is Tanright Residences, care of Attorney Jason Panos. Yes, go ahead. Before you begin, I would like to have a motion to accept. Do I need Barry here for this? Motion to accept the following correspondence. March 8th, 23, revised stormwater management report. 3/8/23, Hayes Engineering response to peer review. 3/8/23, Vanessa and Associates response to World Tech peer review. 3/8/23, revised site development plans. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, those are accepted. Attorney Panos.
Good evening. My name is Jason Panos, practicing law at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. I'm joined tonight by Tony Capicetti from Hayes Engineering and a representative of the applicant Tanright Residences, LLC, Nick Ambiliotis. While Tony and Peabody Access TV are setting up, I just want to clear up a small administrative matter. We were continued through the end of this month, March 31st, and I transmitted by email, and I have the original here, to consent to continuance to allow for the public hearing to go through April 30th, and we'll continue as necessary. Just to bring you up to speed, you saw a bunch of memos go back and forth between DPS, Bob Langley, the board, the peer reviewers. A lot of material came in within the past week, more associated with water. We are undertaking review of those water memos right now. There were some items that were suggested that we disagree with, so we're going to be taking the next week to work with the water peer review consultant for the city, Weston and Sampson, to iron out those differences of opinion. With that, we have gotten demos with regard to stormwater management and 21E from your peer reviewer, Horsley Witten. Bless you. I'm happy to say that most of those issues are closed out, at least between the peer reviewer. Of course, Bob Langley's going to have another crack at that. We had traffic reviewed. We are in compliance, and you'll hear from the technical review presentation. We are in compliance and agreement with the conditions that were recommended. That's okay. So we are in agreement with the recommendations made on traffic, and you'll hear about that tonight. And of course, we got the sewer connection peer review from Ty and Bond. We're going to address the sewer. No major issues there, along with the water review. However, I'm also happy to say that the plans that got submitted to you on March 8th reflect all of the changes and are up to date but for any changes that might result with regard to the water peer review. So the plans you have in front of you now are fresh. They reflect a lot of that back and forth that goes back to October on stormwater management, not 21E. I mean, those were reports that were reviewed. Traffic and I believe sewer. We're still waiting to close out the water substantively. So with that, through the chair and the board, I'd like to turn it over to Tony for the technical presentation. And of course, and there is going to be a lot of material. We've truncated it as much as possible, but we'll, of course, be here for any questions you have. But we're really proud of the progress that we've made to date. It's going along well, actually, and we're doing what we always try to do, which is narrow the issues, narrow the issues, narrow the issues. So, anyways, go ahead. Tony, you're on, Tony.
Thank you. Tony Capichetti with Hayes Engineering, 603 Salem Street, Wakefield, Massachusetts, for the record. I'll start with the traffic peer review. There's fairly minor comments. Van Ness Associates responded just to keep the board up to date. There was a discussion about the trip generation. Originally, the 2 retail uses weren't included in the traffic trip generation. However, we also reduced the total number of units for the project. They pretty much offset, and we came back with the same result. There was a request that we remove 5 of the proposed on-street parking spaces to improve intersection sight distance. Intersection sight distance is typically a measure for roadways, not driveways. However, to accommodate the peer review, we did remove 5 spaces, which still remains with a net increase of 3 on-street spaces and 3 loading spaces that weren't there previously to function for the site. Bicycle parking's provided for the public. There's always been bicycle parking interior for the building, but now we're in the 2 parklets, we've provided bicycle parking. And electric vehicle ready charging spaces will be provided by the code. That's now a requirement for parking lots over 25 spaces. You don't need to provide the charging stations, but they need to be wired and ready and all the infrastructure there. We were going to join a rideshare program. Mass Rides is no longer in service, so we're going to change that to seek out Bay State Commute, which is their replacement. So we just corrected the paperwork on that. The IT recommendations for parking ratios of 1.31 spaces per unit and 0.75 spaces per bedroom remain exceeded. We're at 1.53 per unit and 1 per bedroom overall for the residential spaces. Again, the commercial parking is on the street. That's how it works currently, and that's how it will remain working. We're adding some additional spaces, and the loading spaces will improve the traffic on Walnut Street. Currently, vehicles are double parking to load and unload. We're providing a dedicated space right on Walnut Street in front of the bakery that can be used for all the businesses in that area. Just a review of the plan changes. In yellow indicates the 5 spaces removed. Those 5 spaces are all on Upton Street, and those spaces are now going to be landscape areas, so we'll improve some of the on-street landscaping as a result. The loading spaces are shown as the orange rectangles. Those are at the trash rooms and loading bays for the proposed buildings on Upton Street, and then in front of the bakery loading dock on Walnut Street. The stormwater peer review, we've responded to the comments, and we also received a secondary comment letter that pretty much gave us the all clear. There were a couple of conditions that we'll get into that we're amenable to. There's an 11% reduction in impervious surfaces on site. That reduces the peak flow for all the storms. We focused on improvements to the drainage system for small frequent storms. Those will all go into a structured drainage system in the annual storm along Upton Street. We all know that the drainage system in that area is undersized. So in the current condition, we're not going to be able to convey the 100-year storm. It's just not possible. However, the city has some proposed improvements with the Lawrence Brook culvert that'll alleviate some of the stormwater or runoff that's going to the existing pipe network. That'll improve our system's function into probably the 10-year storm, which is typical for drainage systems. But we did provide a lot of compensatory flood storage in that area, almost 1.5 acre feet, which is about 488,000 gallons of additional storage for the 100-year storm. So while we can't convey it through the drainage system, we're making additional accommodations for that flood water, so it'll alleviate the stress on the surrounding buildings in the area during the large flood events. And we're also improving quality and quantity. We added some water quality inlets on our site to improve the discharges from the site. The compensatory flood storage is shown in light blue here. That's the approximately 1 acre foot of storage below the parking lot in chambers that will allow stormwater to flow in and out. However, because there are restrictions, Mass DEP does not accept that as compensatory flood storage for what we're doing. So beyond the added flood storage that we've provided, those parklets are unrestricted to the floodplain. So that's where we get our compensatory flood storage. And in Horsley Whitland's comments, the second peer review, they said that they're satisfied that we've addressed all the comments. You may choose to consider some conditions that were noted in that letter. We're amenable to all those conditions, basically providing the results of soil testing. So some of those areas are within the building. Once the building's raised is when we do soil testing, and we would submit that to either ZBA, DPS, appropriate city department, and that comes into play whether or not we line the flood storage area. If the land's suitable, we'll leave it unlined so it can infiltrate. If the land is not suitable for one reason or another, we'll line that flood storage area just to provide flood storage and no infiltration. We'll provide all our required LSP findings as we raise the building. We'll provide our stormwater pollution prevention plan and construction sequence to the city prior to land disturbance. They asked for weekly monitoring as part of the stormwater pollution prevention plan. We have no problem with that. And signed O&M plan and signed illicit discharge permit. Once the entity that's going to be in charge of construction is determined, the owner and the responsible party will sign all those. Remaining peer review issues, water and wastewater. So the wastewater side, we really have no issues. There were a couple of minor comments regarding the retail, because the commercial uses are shown on the plan, but they are not part of the comprehensive permit that you're going to grant. So we didn't include it in our wastewater calculations for fees and connections. We just reaffirm that they are subject to I&I fees, connection fees, and those will be done at the time of permitting those buildings. We're about a 10,500 gallon per day increase. We'd be subject to the $5 gallon per day I&I fee at twice the increase. Ty and Bond concluded that based on the evaluation completed, that the additional soil flows could be handled under average and peak conditions. And they said that even though we didn't provide the retail uses in there, there's greater than 50% capacity in those sewer mains. So for a coffee shop or a small retail use, they're not gonna be huge wastewater generators. The water peer review was recently received. I think that was last Thursday. So we've engaged discussions with Bob Langley and Weston and Sampson. We're gonna try and meet this week. And the one outstanding issue is Weston and Sampson is saying that the fire flow, they've estimated at 2,500 gallons per minute necessary. They're saying that the hydrant only provides 1,800 gallons per minute on a fully sprinklered building. And we took the worst case scenario that the two buildings were going to be considered one building, which, talking to our code reviewers, That's not the case because there are 2 firewalls that separate that sky bridge. But we said, well, we'll look at it as acting as one whole building, and that requires 1,250 gallons per minute as the peak fire flow. There's 1,800 gallons per minute provided. They were seeking some mitigation. They wanted all the water mains in that area replaced. We've really cut the density back. There's no indication that there's problems in those water mains other than age. However, I've worked in the water industry. I used to run a water department. The 100-year-old cast iron pipes are some of the strongest pipes that are out there. So we're going to work with them and try and resolve that issue. That's the remaining issue. So our plan is we're going to keep working with Bob Langley, reconcile all the outstanding peer review comments, and the goal is to get a memo from Mr. Langley, as we've done before, that says we've resolved these issues, and those that aren't completed on the plans, these are the conditions like the signing of other documents, so those can be included in the board's decision, and you'll have those before you have the need to close the hearing. We're going to work to finalize the water supply peer review, and just letting you know that we do have to go in front of Conservation Commission for a notice of intent. We're working in the resource area that's called bordering land subject to flooding. That's the flood zone. And Horsley Witten did review for wetlands compliance, and they say in their report, Horsley Witten concurs that as designed by the applicant, it will be in compliance with the Wetland Protection Act. So we don't foresee any major changes coming out of the conservation approval process. If there's any questions or comments, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Just through the chair, there was one question I had when you're talking about lining. So when they're lined, does that mean that it's impermeable? Nothing can get through? Then what happens with the water that's in
So that, even though it's a stormwater chamber, all we're doing is creating flood storage that's underground, because we were filling that parking lot in. So it's not designed to really get rid of the water into the ground. When you have a flood condition from the north, it's connected to the North River. When that backs up, your groundwater's high, you're not really getting much in the way of infiltration. It's more costly to line it, but if there were soil conditions that would be exacerbated by infiltrating more water, then we would line it with the polyethylene, so it would make it impervious. But there's 3 36-inch pipes, we're talking pretty large diameter pipes that allow that water to flow in and out to the flood zone. So all this is doing is basically kind of like the park across the street. We're just providing some additional relief for that flood zone from the North River.
That was my question. I get it now.
And Jason Panos again, it's worth noting that that's exactly the way the Lawrence River Brook remediation is working. They're going to capture that flood water upstream. They're going to hold it, and it's going to release into the system when the conditions are right for it to do so with minimal impact.
Very thorough. Thank you very, very much. It was a great presentation. Any other questions here? Anybody?
I'm sorry, through the chair, I just want to make one comment that I want to make sure I address. There's been talk throughout the hearings with regard to making Upton Street a one-way. The reason why that's absent from our presentation is because it's really not our issue to contend with. It's a city council issue. I've been in touch with Councilor Peach on this. We will commit to working with the city to accomplish that. I think they want to do it. I think we're trying to figure out which one way is the appropriate way, but whatever the city decides, it's going to clean up traffic behind that Upton Street area. We'll work with them, but again, it's an initiative by the city council. It's not something we can unilaterally do.
So who actually takes care of that? I mean, we don't go to the city council and say, okay, are you working on this? Who actually makes sure that they're working on it?
So Councilor Peach is well aware of it. We're obviously well aware of it. Anything that makes the project work better, we're obviously in favor of. Anything that cleans up the neighborhood, we're in favor of. but it really will be an initiative by Councilor Peach. So I will make sure before the April 24th hearing that I re-engage Councilor Peach and start to figure out where those conversations are going to lead at the city council level.
I'm just quickly. You were a city councilor, Mr. Osborne. Do you make a motion in city council to, I make a motion to make Upton Street, blah, blah, blah. So
It's an ordinance change.
And Councilor Peach, let's just say Councilor Peach would make that to the council, and then they vote on that? Okay.
And I just wanted to make the point that the conversations are ongoing and we're not dropping the ball on the issue. It's just not our ball to carry.
Great. Anybody, so we're all set here. Anybody in the audience to speak? That was a great presentation. I think at this point, okay, so we will see you on the 24th. You already gave us the extension request, so that's fine. Motion to, so we're going to accept that and make a motion to continue. Can I have a motion to continue till April 24th?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any other matters that we have to discuss?
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.